A is equal to a dog is equal to a dog, a tree is equal to a tree. So you probably have noticed how people today seem to live in completely different realities. Things have to have causes to come into existence. Hey everybody, this is Adam Scott for Adam Scott Education, and you're here because you want to learn about Aristotle's 6 axioms of reality and how the world is actually held together. So let's get right into that. So you probably have noticed how people today seem to live in completely different realities. And people use the same words, they'll use the same things when they talk, but they mean completely different things. Like they might talk about science, or they might talk about authority, or they might talk about tolerance. But what happens is we're using words that have different meanings and we don't even realize it. And it feels like we're all talking past one another, and in a sense, we are. This is exactly what Aristotle tried to solve about 2,000 years ago with many of his works. So we're going to dive into that process of understanding those through those 6 axioms. He believed that before you can argue, before you can build, before you can even figure out like how to understand something, you have to start with what's real and the principles that make reality possible. Those are what he formed his entire logical treatises on, called the Organon. He called them the first truths, or what we now call axioms. These aren't necessarily opinions or theories. They're things that are so self-evident or basic that they hold the world together. So let's walk through what those 6 axioms actually are. Number 1, the law of identity. A is equal to a dog is equal to a dog, a tree is equal to a tree, found in Metaphysics. So this is the most simple and important one. And it simply states that a thing is what it is. A tree is a tree. A triangle has 3 sides, and you can call it whatever else you want, but it doesn't change the nature of what it is. And this comes from Aristotle's idea of empiricism, that we have to observe the actual world in front of us to determine what reality actually is. And the law of identity lays the foundation of logical principles. It's where logic begins, and thanks to the chaos and confusion of our modern world, it's where modern life either falls apart or we start to disagree with one another. And it's because when words lose a meaning, or when we pretend that something can be whatever it wants to be, whenever it wants to be, we're denying it. And that's a logical problem. Because if we can change the meaning of reality whenever we see fit to do so, reality itself ceases to have meaning. So a thing, if it can't even be itself, how can we reason about it? And reason is the tool that allows us to pursue truth and figure out what's actually happening in the world. The second axiom is the law of non-contradiction, found in Metaphysics, Book 4. This one sounds obvious, but it's the foundation of sanity. So something can't be and not be at the same time in the same way. So let's look at an example. So you can't be both entirely truthful and deceitful in the same statement. If we claim 2 opposite things are equally true, it doesn't mean that we're being open-minded. It means that we're being irrational. And it doesn't mean you're a bad person. It doesn't mean you're evil. It doesn't mean you don't like someone. What it means is your thinking does not stand up to the bounds of reality. And as Aristotle said, this is the hardest law to deny, because the moment you do, you're using it to argue against itself. Number 3 is the law of the excluded middle. And that's found in Metaphysics, Book 4 as well. This one says that there's no middle ground between being and not being. So a statement is either true or it's false. Like you can't be sort of and not sort of all at the same time. This doesn't mean that life is always black and white. So it doesn't mean that there's no shades of gray in between. It doesn't mean that life is always black and white. It just means that every idea eventually has to land somewhere. You can't stay suspended in maybe forever. So Aristotle wanted us to face reality and wanted us to face it honestly. He wanted us to not hide behind vague half-truths that make us feel comfortable, but obscure what reality looks like and actually is in our life. Number 4 is the principle of causality, or cause and effect, and that's found in Physics, Book 2. Everything that begins to exist has a cause. Nothing happens by pure accident. And Aristotle broke this into 4 types of causes. What something is made of, what gives it its form, what makes it move or change, and what it's ultimately for. Things have to have causes to come into existence, and that is what makes things happen. And if you take away any of those things, the existence or reality of any of them falls apart, and that becomes very problematic. Number 5 is the principle of sufficient reason, and it's found in posterior analytics as well as physics. And this principle is the idea that it's simple but powerful. Everything happens for a reason that can be known. It's what keeps logic tied to reality. Fire burns because of what it is. Plants move because of forces we can study. We might not know every cause, but we know there is one. But when we give up on reasons, we drift into superstition, or we drift into politics without principles. That's where truth starts to get replaced by slogans or platitudes, and then we get into really dangerous territory, as so many of us have seen. The sixth axiom is the principle of finality, otherwise known as teleology. See that found in Physics, Book 2. Aristotle believed everything in nature acts towards a purpose. It's telos, like it's going somewhere. So for example, an acorn becomes an oak tree, not a pine, because an acorn becomes an oak. The purpose is built into what it is. That's why it becomes an oak tree. Humans are no different. We're built to reason, to seek good, and to pursue meaning. And when we forget that, we lose direction, and that's really problematic. Aristotle said that every art and every inquiry aims at some good, and that's telos, that's purpose. And it's what gives life order instead of chaos. If we don't have a purpose, we don't have anything at all to do that's useful in any way, and that is a huge problem. So these principles, they might sound abstract, but they're what makes everything possible, from math to morality. They're how we test ideas, they're how we check our thinking, and how we keep ourselves aligned with reality. And if we ignore any of them, if we just decide, one of those doesn't work, one of those doesn't fit, I just don't like it, or it hurts my feelings, or makes me feel uncomfortable, we ignore that, things fall apart because reality falls apart. But when we live by them, we have a clarity about what exists, and we can then get somewhere in life that hopefully involves the telos, or pursuit of some good. Aristotle didn't just give us this as a way to think, he gave us the idea of a way to live and see reality as it is so we can use reason to understand it and aim for what's good. I'm Adam Scott for Adam Scott Education. I'm glad you're here. Let me know what questions you have. I'll see you next time.